You are acting like a bunch of niggers. Just
All right, folks, and we are live. Pardon me. All right, so I got one thing in particular I really want to talk about. And if you watch Forney's stream, he already talked about this video or this article because I sent it to him. But I'm going to talk about it too because, well, holy shit, is it something special? All right, let's bring it up. I don't know if I should just play it. I could just play the audio. Maybe I'll do that because I'm lazy. Let's play the audio. Make sure the audio is good.
Freedom of speech is a badly misunderstood concept. Here's why Christians must get this right next on Breakpoint.
From the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, here's John Stone Street with Breakpoint.
Silicon Valley has never had the friendliest relationship with conservatives. Last year, Google fired James Damore for circulating a memo about the differences between men and women. And before that, Brennan Eich was forced out of Mozilla for donating to California's traditional marriage campaign. Now, tech giants are flexing their muscles by going after conspiracy theorist and libertarian shock jock Alex Jones. Just days ago, Apple permanently removed Jones from its mobile app store, citing violations of its policy against objectionable content. He's kicked off Twitter after the company says he repeatedly broke its rules against abuse and harassment. Facebook and Google recently removed Jones' content from their platforms as well. Now,
Real quick, I'll interrupt this a couple of times as I see fit. The guy who's a conspiracy theorist suddenly has a bunch of seemingly independent companies act against him in the course of a couple of days. Kind of gets that noggin jogging.
the immediate reaction of many conservatives and even some Christians to this news has been to defend Jones. Senator Ted Cruz asked who made Facebook the arbiter of political speech. Jonah Goldberg at National Review called the move a glimpse at the future in which big internet silences dissident voices on the right. And Jones himself has accused Silicon Valley of censoring him. Many of his fans have called this a violation of free speech. Now, look, no one should listen to Alex Jones on social media or anywhere else. Let me just say that. His is a brand of conspiracy theories and outright lies. For example, he claims the victims of the Parkland, Florida, and Sandy Hook elementary shootings are crisis actors. He's even harassed some of
No, he hasn't. No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
them. He claims the Boston Marathon bombing and September 11th were inside jobs and that the government is dumping chemicals in our water to turn frogs gay.
He didn't say the government. He never said the government specifically was doing it. And by the way, he was proven right on that. As he basically always is.
But as some have argued, this move sets a troubling precedent of purging online critics of progressive orthodoxy. There's clear and mounting evidence that Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, even Amazon have a strong bias against conservatives, including religious conservatives, a bias they sometimes act on in unfair ways. For example, Prager University, which has excellent content, continues to fight Google over the company's decision to restrict their videos. But should we consider the blackout of Alex Jones the same thing? More importantly, is this a violation of his free speech? Look, to be clear, the First Amendment guarantees protection from government infringement on speech, religion, and assembly. It does not require companies in the private sector, even Google, Facebook, Twitter, or Apple, to carry speech on their servers or sites that they don't like. Forcing them to give Jones a megaphone would be a violation of their freedom of speech. If we insist these companies let every conspiracy theorist use their platforms, how do we object when bakers like Jack Phillips or florists like Baronel Stutzman are told by progressives they have to participate in and celebrate same-sex weddings? In order to be consistent,
In order to be consistent, I'm not going to play the rest. In order to be consistent, first of all, there's this flawed mentality where he thinks, well, I'm going to be consistent and I'm going to play fair. And then the other side will see that and they'll see I'm playing. No, John, on the off chance you should hear this. And I assume you'd already tuned out because you're a big raging faggot. But they want you dead. You understand that? You pudgy, sackless cuck. They want you dead, okay? They want you lined up against the wall. They want your son turned into faggots and trannies. They want your daughters turned into whores and single mothers. They want you dead and your legacy destroyed. And they think it's funny. So enough with the let's play fair with them shit. Can we just drop that, okay? Can we stop trying to play fucking, tag football while they're playing tackle football? Can we knock that gay shit off? Okay. Now, I had a comment on here. I had a couple, actually, that I frankly was surprised even got. My first main comment on here was I said, in fact, we'll go on the screen share. Boom. All right, so, and they moderate comments like a motherfucker, so I even have some pending. I said, you're wrong, John. The precedent here is in Jones's favor. Court case Marsh v. Alabama. Forney always harps on this, and he's not wrong. The court case Marsh v. Alabama. In that case, like typo there. In that case, a woman was handing out religious pamphlets to people on the sidewalk in a company town. They stopped her, and she took it to the Supreme Court and won. Because the court ruled that when a company has a monopoly on the means in which free speech takes place, they cannot restrict free speech. And just pragmatically, do you not see what is happening? They'll come for this site eventually for being homophobic or whatever. Maybe they'll throw you off social media, or maybe you'll have an incredibly hard time finding a domain register. That's already happened to some sites deemed hate speech. Is it really free speech when a handful of billionaires in Silicon Valley decide what we can all say or think? But maybe Breakpoint won't have anything to fear from our new tech giant overlords. After all, you seem to be of the old school William F. Buckley conservatism, the kind that does nothing but lose and never conserved a thing. You might be allowed to stick around as a punching bag, like the bow tie wearing token Republicans they have on MSNBC. There's a few other responses. I had a back and forth with the editor talking about the Marsh v. Alabama case, and this response is rich here. He says, not being a lawyer myself, I ran a suggestion about Marsh by one. This was his reply. Marsh isn't applicable here. Going through it. He goes, but here's the bottom. He goes, here's a link to an article that sums this legal situation nicely. And he links to the Huffington Post. This nigga links to the Huffington Post as a credible source. By the way, I mentioned earlier where was it? I talked about two sites that had their domain registry seized. I said the white nationalist site, the Daily Stormer, as well as, and he deletes the website because I typed out altright.com. Because the reason I typed it out as a website wasn't that I was trying to link to it. It's just .com is part of their fucking name. And he deleted that. You see, I approved this comment, but I will not allow the website you shared as part of an example. But you linked to the Huffington fucking Post. You won't allow a website. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to defend Richard Spencer too much because I fucking hate that guy. But you won't allow it's funny. He allows the Daily Stormer to be mentioned, but not the one by, not alt-right. He allowed the Daily Stormer makes me fucking wince. They're so hardcore, all right? But, we can't have a website that dares to suggest maybe white people have an intrinsic right to exist. But we'll link to the Huffington fucking Post. This dumb piece of pig shit right here is taking his legal advice on whether or not we can fight this from the Huffington Post. I don't know about you, Timothy, but I generally don't take advice from motherfuckers that want me dead. All right? And make no mistake, every one of the hyper liberals, and I have a reply to this that's pending where I said, you're linking to the Huffington Post. What's the matter? You couldn't find I didn't say this, but I said you couldn't find a BuzzFeed article. But what the hell, Timothy? You couldn't find a 400-pound transsexual black Muslim on BuzzFeed to support your case? You're linking to the Huffington fucking Post. Are you kidding me? I've been shitting on Catholics a lot lately, and they have it coming, make no mistake. But tonight's pretty much going to be the shit on my fellow evangelicals. Okay? In a desperate and likely vain attempt to get them to sprout fucking sacks already. That's the thing, Timothy. I don't generally take the advice of people that want me dead. And make no mistake, Timothy D. Pageant, or Pageant, or whatever the hell your name's pronounced. Make no mistake, my friend. Every one of the hyper-liberals at Huffington Post would happily line you, me, and Stone Street up against the wall and not lose a wink of sleep about it. So, you know what I replied to him? And again, it's pending. You don't see it yet. I said to him, you know, okay, so one lawyer you talked to says it wouldn't work. I've heard lawyers say it wouldn't. But here's the thing, Timothy. Here's what I don't get. And this is what I said in the reply. And this is an honest question. This isn't me being mean here. Don't you think it's worth a try? Don't you actually want to maybe fight? Or do you want a future where you can't go to work in the morning because your Amazon smart car won't start because Alexa overheard you saying some wrong thing last night? Is that the fucking future you want? You know? For the longest time, I was one of these, you know, purists where it's like, well, the government is the one I want off my... I don't want any boots on my neck. Whether or not those boots come from Uncle Sam or the fucking bug man in Silicon Valley. It's not free speech if Mark Zuckerberg decides what the hell I get to say. That's not free fucking speech. And do these idiots not realize, like Breakpoint is a joke, okay? It's a fucking joke. John Stone Street is a fucking nobody. And yes, I realize I'm nobody, but, you know, whatever. I don't claim to be somebody. John Stone Street's a fucking nobody, okay? In evangelical circles I run with, nobody fucking heard of Breakpoint, all right? I sometimes mention it, nobody fucking knows. Every once in a while somebody will be like, oh, that's that thing that's on the religious station at like 6 o'clock, right? That little 2-minute, that little, you know, the little minute and a half thing that they do there that I was playing. That's what this article is. It's also like a minute and a half radio thing that comes on every day. But nobody, even in evangelical circles, knows who the fuck Breakpoint is. I constantly cite them because, again, they have these short little articles every weekday, and they have like a little half-an-hour podcast on the weekends. They have other shit on their site, but point is, it's little digestible, bite-sized nuggets of churchianity nonsense that I can usually use for show prep. But nobody knows who the fuck John Stone Street is, even within evangelical circles, okay? The other guy on here, Eric Metaxas, people do know him as an author. Because he wrote one big autobiography on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He wrote another on Martin Luther. He actually fucking matters in Christian circles. But not for this. He matters because people give a shit about his books. Nobody even knows he's in this. This site was actually founded by Chuck Colson. The guy who was actually one of the guys ended up going to jail during the Nixon debacle. Anyways. John Stone Street doesn't matter. And I say all that not to be mean, but to point out the fact that he might not get silenced in all this. If this keeps going forward and nobody stops it, he might have a bright future as the bow tie wearing Republican on MSNBC. He's that ineffectual. He's that fucking harmless. He doesn't move the needle at all. They might leave him be. But that's the only fucking hope he has if this isn't fought. And frankly, he does speak out against homosexuality and transsexuality, so he is liable to get the fucking boot for that at some point. And that's the thing, you know, okay, it starts with the white nationalists and you don't give a shit about the white nationalists. I don't give a shit if they're fucking silenced either, to be honest with you. You think I lose any real sleep over the fact that Richard Spencer is getting his site yanked or that Andrew Anglin is getting fucked with? I don't like either one of those guys, especially Spencer. You know, I don't lose any sleep over that, except for the fact that I know it doesn't stop with them. Now, Alex Jones does matter, in my opinion. Alex Jones is doing the Lord's work out there. But, you know, even if I didn't give a shit about him, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. I said to him in one of these comments, I was like, you know, it starts with the white nationalists, moves on to the conspiracy guys. Do you really think your time isn't coming? What is wrong with... Don't you want to fight? Like, don't you... Do you want this? You know? Like, okay, maybe the Marshby, Alabama thing, maybe you take that to the Supreme Court and maybe you'd lose. But fucking try! And that's the other thing. Like, okay, fine. You know, It's something I used to hear from libertarians regarding this shit. I want a free market solution. I want a free market solution to this. Well, hot damn, so do I. And you know what else I want while we're wishing on a fucking genie lamp? I want my balls to be in Taylor Swift's mouth right now. I want to win the Powerball. I mean, if we're wishing on a fucking star, yeah, there's plenty of things I fucking want. I also want a free market solution. Do you fucking have one? No. Well then, okay, let's go with something else because we need a fucking solution. I want a free market solution. That's basically a 6-year-old girl saying, I want a pony. Well, it's not going to fucking happen, sweetie. All right? So, yeah, John Stone Street, do you have a fucking solution to this? No, you don't. You know, and that's the other thing. He wants to hide behind this fucking freedom of association shit that he doesn't believe in. Okay? Because when talking about the Baker thing, I've asked him in comment threads, well, then I guess you know, if you're all for the baker not having to bake the dildo cake, does that mean you oppose the Civil Rights Act? You know, the parts that apply to private businesses? Oh, no, that's different. Of course it's different. Because you have to think that. I won't even link to altright.com. But let me cite the Huffington's fucking Post as a credible source. Nigga, you serious? The Huffington fucking Post. Give me that shit. Well, I'd like a free market solution. Yeah, sure, so would I. Do you have one? No? Well, then I guess we got to go with something else. And don't give me this bullshit about Gab and BitChute. Okay, that's motherfucking pipe dreams. Look, I'm on Gab. Hell, I'm on BitChute. I got my animated videos up on there. And I'd love for Gab to just take off and Twitter crash and burn. That'd be fantastic. I'd love for BitChute to take off and YouTube to crash and burn. That'd be fucking fantastic too. And sometimes shit like that does happen. You know, MySpace went bye-bye and Facebook took its place. Although I believe there were certain forces behind the scene making sure that happened. But the thing about it is these platforms, they suffer from what I like to call the third-party problem. You know, in an election, a lot of people would like to vote third-party, but they don't. And you know why they don't vote third-party? Well, because they can't win. But if everybody who wanted that to vote for that third party actually did, instead of settling for one of the other two, then they actually might win. Maybe not presidential because the Electoral College muddies that water, but just in a typical, say, Senate race or something. The catch-22 of it becomes nobody votes third party because nobody votes third party. Now, that's a whole different topic, but the point is, nobody's on BitChute because nobody's on BitChute. Now, Alex Jones got forced onto it, and that might help BitChute a great deal. But generally speaking, that's the problem these sites have. Nobody's on Gab because nobody's on Gab. Generally speaking, that's a problem these sites have. Because the reality is, we don't need two Twitters. We need a Twitter that doesn't censor everyone to the right of Karl Marx. Similarly, we don't need two YouTubes. We need a YouTube that doesn't fuck everyone over. Yeah, I would love that we could fix this shit without, you know, free market, without the government interfering. Yeah, that'd be fucking fantastic, but it's not going to happen. All right? And what needs to happen is some antitrust laws need to be applied to these companies. All right? Microsoft got fucked in the late 90s on antitrust shit for way less than Google does. Way less than Apple does. Way less than even Twitter fucking does. Okay? Antitrust laws. Fuck these companies over. Break them up if you have to. Break fucking Google up. Break Google up. Make YouTube its own thing. Yeah, Alphabet is the company. Break fucking Alphabet up. Demand Alphabet split into 2, maybe 3 fucking companies. And that doesn't solve the problem. That's just a temporary thing. Because these companies, there's already like 3 or 4 companies running the internet. And they all collude with one another. They're all incestuous with one another. So that doesn't solve it either. You need some sort of thou shalt not censor legislation. Failing that, you take it to the Supreme Court. You argue Marsh v. fucking Alabama. You make them knock this shit off. Or else guess what, John fucking Cuck Street? There ain't gonna be a breakpoint.org for much longer. What happens when your registrar says, hey, you know, we're sick of you talking shit about the trannies. So you gotta knock that shit off or you ain't got a website no more. What are you gonna do? Maybe you'll just roll over and take it. I mean, you seem to be that kind of a cuck. But the gay shit usually does get the evangelicals to stand their ground. Just because of that Puritan streak in them. Citing me the Huffington Post. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit? Sorry, Timothy. I don't generally take advice from my enemies. Oh, you mean your political enemy said you can't fight this and you just have to roll over and take it? Well, I guess they're right. The Huffington fucking Post. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't... I'm at a loss sometimes, you know? By the way, folks, I hopped into the voice chat. If you want to hop into the show, feel free. Because that is pretty much all I had to talk about tonight. I just really needed to fucking talk about it. Like, holy shit. See, this is why some guys think that this is, like, controlled opposition. You know? Because can he really be that stupid? You know, can he really be that faggy? I don't know. The other news tonight, I saw the Captain Marvel trailer, the Marvel movie. It doesn't look bad. Like I have a bit of cautious optimism now. I'm not gonna see it in the theater because A, I've kind of sworn off going to the movie theater. But B, it's not. It doesn't look good enough to really get me in the theater anyway. So I'm likely not gonna see it in the theater.
I'm
maybe
still pretty unsure.
Yeah, maybe if I get dragged in with friends or something, that's different. But like, I have no real desire. Like, I gotta go see this in the theater, kind of thing. I like that they have Marvel in it, because that's the original Captain Marvel. You know, Miss Marvel was a spinoff of him, and then she became Captain Marvel. I like that. I would have preferred the movie focus on him than maybe a second movie focus on Carol Danvers. If for nothing else, I'd love to see some sort of faithful adaptation of the death of Captain Marvel. That would be amazing. But there's a lot to like in that trailer. There's a lot to be cautiously optimistic about. It's a small thing, but I really like it. I like the fact that it looks like they're showing the Kree are both blue skin and quote unquote pink skin, because the Kree have two main races to them. The blue skin ones, and then there's the pink skin ones that look like white people. And what always made me laugh about that is the pink skins are the niggers of the Kree. Like, they're the lower class ones. They're the ones nobody fucking likes. Like, Marvel was a pink skin, and it was actually a big deal for him to rise in the Kree army so high, despite being, you know, the minority, the put upon minority. So I kind of like that. I kind of like, you know, it's just a clever little thing, you know. I've always gotten a kick out of it, so I like that it looks like they're keeping that. I don't know if they're gonna actually spell out the pink skins or the, you know, they're the fucking ghetto trash nobody likes.
I don't like that they seem to be emphasizing that she's female.
Yeah,
so much.
I'm gonna hope that's in just trailer shit. Because it didn't look like there's any actual scenes they showed that really emphasized it. It just looked like the trailer was really emphasizing it. You know what I mean?
Yep. That and because instead of making Carol Danvers into Miss Marvel, they're going to be making the Muslim into Miss Marvel.
Oh, jeez.
Isn't that planned?
I've heard that, but who knows?
I've heard that.
Just
Hopefully not.
God,
Hopefully I'm just hearing things.
God, that character is just trash. You know there's a Muslim character from Marvel from years ago that he's got like, I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember this big crossover called Contest of Champions, and there's an Israeli superhero too called like Sabra or something like that, and the Muslim guy was giving her shit. He's like, I'm not gonna listen to a Jew, especially not a female Jew, and like, but the Muslim guy's like MO is like he looks like a shirtless like Aladdin motherfucker with like a turban, and he's got one of those fucking like one of those mini swords and shit like that. And I swear, I don't have the thing in front of me. I swear the nigga had a flying carpet too. Like it was so, like I'd read his book because that's fucking hilarious. All right, that's fucking great. I'd read the book where he just bitches about Israel all the fucking time. Like I'll fucking read that guy's book. You can make that weekly, and I'll pick that shit up every week. But yeah, I'm not reading Durka Miss Marvel. Fuck you on that.
There's something that sounds like I missed from the Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel trailer. Apparently she punches an old lady. Is that a thing?
I know exactly what they're going for, but it's confusing to people in the that just see the trailer. They show the Skrulls, right? The green guys you see with the pointy ears, right? That's an alien race that shapeshift. So she's clearly punching a Skrull who's pretending to be a human, right? Now, I know that because I'm familiar with the source material. People that are not familiar with the source material see the superhero punching an old lady on the bus. And that is really fucking jarring. Like, oh, this old lady smiled at me, I'm going to kill her. I kind of want to see what it was. I kind of want to see what the normies think of that, to be honest. What like the people unfamiliar with the source material, because I kind of noticed that too. Because nowhere in the trailer do we see Skrulls shapeshift. I know that they do because I'm familiar with the source material, but like we don't see them as shapeshifting aliens in the trailer. We just see it looks like a bunch of them on the beach or something. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They look good. Visually, everything about it looks great. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really weird to put in the trailer. I'm like, you're not really explaining that.
I think it's fantastic.
Just fuck you. Fucking. She was like fucking boomers. Actually, this takes place in the 90s, so that wouldn't be a boomer at that age.
Huh.
That would still be like greatest generation.
Why the time difference? We've never heard of her in the Marvel films that take place in recent history.
I think that they want to establish a history to her, and that's why they're jumping back. And boy, does it make me feel old that the 90s is a period piece now in a movie.
Ah, shit.
I know, no shit, man. But, like, I guess they're just going to, the idea being none of this became public. Because they've already shown in other movies that there have been superheroes operating over the years that just the general public didn't know about. Like, the original Ant-Man and the Wasp operating years ago in the 80s and 90s. So, it's just a way to give the history of this fictional universe a bit more depth, which I like.
Do you think Carol Danvers could ruin Infinity War? If the movie doesn't turn out good,
I don't know. It really depends on. I don't know. I don't think that this is going to be a disaster. That's the thing. Like I looked at the trailer and I'm like, okay, it's probably just going to be mediocre. Like it doesn't look like it's going to be really bad, Like I don't expect that it's gonna be like Batman v Superman clusterfuck. You know what I mean? I really don't expect that. I think it'll be okay at worst. So I don't think that. I think after Infinity War, if they start shoehorning in the characters no one gives a shit about, like Durka Miss Marvel and all, I think that's when they run shit off the rails.
Mhm.
Especially if they
Unless
try
they-
and give her their own movie. Like, you want to
Yeah.
like have her pop up in one of the Netflix shows or something as a side character. That's one thing, but you want to push a full theatrical movie on that. I just don't see it doing well, and I just don't see it being good. So I just
Imagine if they decide to throw in like that teenage girl that turned out to be Iron Man in the comics.
jeez, the fucking Riri Williams is
Like-
her name. Yeah, that
like they decide, oh, our actors are getting old and we've already done several movies with them. Let's replace them.
you know, if you were gonna do like next generation heroes, what I always thought something cool Sony could have done was either do like Spider-Man 2099 or Spider-Girl. Like Spider-Girl, the teenage daughter in like a possible future of Peter and MJ. Like she just inherits her father's abilities and becomes a superhero in her own right. Like that would be interesting to do. Spider-Man 2099 would be interesting to do. It's like here's Spider-Man filtered through fucking Blade Runner sensibilities. That's kind of cool. Plus,
Hey, did you
Spider-Man
know-
2099 was biracial, so you could actually be stroking the diversity cock right there. I mean, he was half Hispanic, half Irish. His name was literally Miguel O'Hara.
Did you know about the animated Spider-Man movie that's coming out?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the hell's going on with it. I think it's going to be kind of like a multiverse thing, like different universes, because it looks like they're throwing Spider-Gwen in there. It looks like an adaptation of the Spider-Verse storyline, which is Spider-Verse was a storyline where these entities were going from universe to universe, sucking the life force out of every Spider-Man woman or girl or boy they find. The little bit I see doesn't look good.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe it will be. I don't know. And part of it, I don't really want to support Hollywood that much anymore. So I don't plan on going to the movies anymore. I mean, you know.
The people I showed it to were salivating over it, but then again, they were animation people and they were just really liking the visuals. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it'll be
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Something about making Peter Parker into a mentor figure I'm not so sure about.
yeah, I never saw that either. I could never really see that in him.
It's-
Even as an adult, even as a grown man, when they weren't writing him as a full-on man child, he always had a bit of an outsider looking in vibe to him.
Yeah, like he's
Even among like fellow superheroes, like there's sort of storylines in the early 2000s when he finally becomes a full-time Avenger, and like he almost starts looking up to Tony Stark a bit as a father figure.
like it seems like he's supposed to be a full character to me, but for some reason they're trying to make him into a mentor.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he's a full character, but he definitely has the and he does look a little like a full character in that movie, but
I definitely say he's more of a full character in the Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know
yeah,
how
but
accurate-
that he's supposed to be a teenager, so I kind of give that a pass.
Well.
Like in the comics, when he became a full-time Avenger in the early 2000s, he was already an adult, but he still sort of ended up falling under Tony Stark's wing. But that was more just because it was very obvious he was just really, really enjoying being part of the crowd for once. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it wasn't so much glomming on for a father figure as almost an older brother figure. You know?
Mhm.
Whatever. Like I said, I mean, I got to give the Marvel Cinematic Universe credit. It's had like 20 movies now, and the worst ones are just okay. You know, so I mean, that's a pretty good feat.
I was pretty annoyed by Homecoming though, because
There's
it
a
was
lot I really, really like about Homecoming, and there's a lot I didn't. I don't
Yeah.
like the Burger King Kids Club fucking casting of all the other teen characters. I didn't like it all. And racial issues aside, the quote unquote MJ character is as insufferable could be.
I
She
feel like
was
she,
fucking awful. I would
yeah,
have hated that character if it was a fucking redhead playing it, because that just was written like it was
well,
written like you distilled everything terrible about Daria. You know,
because
it's
it's
like
not Mary Jane, no matter who you cast as her.
yeah, it's like yeah, it's just not. It's like we decided to take that Daria cartoon and strip away any redeeming aspects to the character until you
Like,
just want to murder her with a rusty spoon.
I hope her name was just an Easter egg or something that the real Mary Jane shows up later in the
Oh,
movies.
I'd love that. 'Cause that character's insufferable. If we ever see her again, it'll be too soon. But that said, though, there was a lot I really, really liked about it. Michael Keaton's Vulture was amazing. That was one of the best villains the Marvel Cinematic Universe has had. There was just a lot I really, really, really liked about it. Like I said, though, there's aspects of it I feel like are fantastic and almost like if it could just be changed a little bit, you could have had the best Spider-Man movie ever out of it.
Yeah, like, I really liked Spider-Man. I liked the villain. I'm not that sold on all the other characters.
I kind of like the fat Filipino kid. I didn't think I would, and I know he's actually sort of lifted off of Miles, the Black Spider-Man kid. He's actually sort of lifted off of his supporting cast, but I thought he really worked well in it.
Mhm. And I just kind of think I would have preferred Harry Osborn, but that's really just a nitpick.
Yeah,
I think
I
I
kind of
mainly
preferred it too. I'll tell you the other one that didn't work at all was the little fucking shit streeter, the street shitter that was playing Flash Thompson. That's not
Yeah,
fucking
that
Flash
didn't work.
Thompson at all. Never mind the racial aspects of it. Flash Thompson's a big old fucking jock that beats the shit out of people and is intimidating. There's
Whereas
nothing
this guy's in the
intimidating about
spelling
this
bee or
guy.
something.
Yeah, he's not even that fucking smart. He's not even intimidating among the nerds.
Why is
Like,
he trying to gloat about being better than Parker
I
so
don't know,
much?
he was just fuck that character. That was trash, man. The diversity shit in that movie really, really dragged it down.
Another issue I had was with Aunt May. Why is she so young?
Oh yes, I agree with that. Man,
And
that's ridiculous.
her screaming the F word at the end felt very off to me. Like, yeah, it didn't.
I like the idea of Aunt May knowing. I really like that in the Ultimate Universe when Aunt May found out early on, and when J. Michael Starsky was doing his Amazing Spider-Man run, having Aunt May find out was basically the first time Aunt May became interesting to me as a character at all. But yeah, I just
didn't feel
don't
like
know.
this was Aunt May.
Yeah, it wasn't. It just wasn't. I
Like
don't know
that,
what they were going with that. There's just
like that's worse than the MJ thing because they can at least shrug off MJ and say
yeah, because
this was
that's not
just a
even
side
Mary
character.
Jane. That's just some
Yeah,
new character they sort of named MJ. This is Aunt May.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I said, it's we'll see where they're going with it. I don't think Captain Marvel is going to be that bad anymore. I'm not really excited about it. I'm genuinely excited about Shazam. That looks fucking fantastic.
Oh, what's Shazam?
That's one of the DC things. The character is actually named Captain Marvel. They just, because of legal reasons, they can't use Captain Marvel in a title. But that's like the little kid that turns into a Superman-like character, because he has he's struck by the magic lightning. It's actually really cool. I'm looking forward to the Shazam movie. The Aquaman movie, the trailers of it, I'm cautiously optimistic. And I mean, I'm somebody who's almost entirely written off the DC cinematic universe because it's like I didn't even see Justice League. As much as I'm into cape shit, I didn't even bother to see it. Like, not in a theater, not on DVD, not nothing. I just don't care. I just don't want to see it. I didn't bother to see Suicide Squad either. I just fucking didn't care. I saw Wonder Woman because the trailers had me cautiously optimistic, and it turned out to be really good.
The only DC film I bothered to see was Wonder Woman because I heard good things about it.
Wonder Woman was good. Then again, I'm somebody who liked Green Lantern, so I'm clearly out of the mainstream. Hell, I think Green Lantern is probably easily in the top 5 of DC live action movies ever.
Well, when you're comparing it to the recent stuff.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. That's not. I mean, even some of the quote unquote classics of DC live action movies, I don't think the Christopher Reeve movies are that particularly good. I can see why they were impressive at the time, but they let's just say they haven't aged well. Really, I don't think any Superman movie is particularly good. Hell, you could make the case that Man of Steel is the best one, and it's not even that good.
I've never heard of a good Superman movie.
Hell, I remember seeing Superman Returns in theaters, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. And everyone's like shitting on it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, every criticism they had of it applied to the fucking Christopher Reeve movies. I'm like, this is just a case where nostalgia shields those movies. And, you know, Superman Returns is hell, I would say Man of Steel and Superman 2 are the ones that are better than Superman Returns. I think Superman Returns was better than the first Christopher Reeve movie. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a good movie, go see it, but hell, I like the Jonah Hex movie more than most DC movies. And that's just their stupid cowboy character that inexplicably got a movie. But then again, I'm out of the mainstream in a lot of this. I've reached a point now where I've decided Michael Keaton's first Batman movie is better than the Nolan trilogy. Like, the Nolan trilogy, just every time I see it, it gets worse to me. All of them. All of them. Every time I see it, they get worse.
I like the Nolan films, but I'm not a Batman fan to begin with, so...
The Nolan, yeah, that's probably why you like them, because the Nolan movies desperately don't want to be Batman movies.
Yeah, that's what I hear. They're just not Batman films.
I mean, like, Batman Begins, at this point, I consider boring. I have a hard time getting through it. And I mean, I adored it when it first came out. I thought it was amazing. But every time I watched it, it just got lesser in my eyes. And then, like, Dark Knight, like, yeah, I'll sit through, like I can't. I'll perk up every time Heath Ledger is on screen. Other than that, I'm probably bored. And then like Dark Knight Rises, I'll perk up every time Bane's on screen. Although I'm enjoying that performance for the opposite reason. But other than that, I'm fucking bored. Hell, I'd rather watch Batman Returns than fucking Batman Begins. And Returns is a fucking mess. Returns is basically a fetish film that Tim Burton had permission to make that he just slapped Batman shit on.
So, that breakpoint thing, is that mentality mainly a thing among boomers? Like Christian boomers?
I think it's mainly among that and sort of GOP GOP establishment guys. And I think part of it is they just don't want to fight. You know what I mean? It's like they've gotten to where especially conservative boomers have gotten to where they're like happy being forever the fucking Washington Generals to the left's Harlem Globetrotters. Like they'd rather complain than win.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like that comic where it's like, you know, I have a problem and somebody's like, here's a solution. And he's like, I don't want a solution. I want to be mad.
I remember bringing up Count Dankula being thrown in prison over a joke to my boomer uncle, and he was defending it for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know what is up with fucking boomers. And I just... I don't get it. It's like... I mean, truly the worst generation. It's like they want to fuck everything over. Like, okay, let's say, okay, so I bring up Marsh v. Alabama, right? Let's assume this Timothy editor guy is a boomer, because I bet he is. I'd put not a large sum of money on it, but easily a few bucks on that. Here's a fucking possible solution. And you just immediately want to dismiss it as soon as you can? Why don't you want to fight? Why don't you want to push back against the left? Why are you citing the Huffington Post, you massive faggot? Oh, no, we can't do that. These people who would line us all against a wall said we shouldn't. Oh, okay, well, I guess we shouldn't. Why don't we take advice from the devil himself while we're at it?
These people who would pick George Bush over Donald Trump. I've seen that.
I'm beginning to think they in their heart of hearts, they wanted Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump.
A lot of them will draw the line there, but even then, they don't like Trump that much. Because he says mean things on stage, apparently.
Yeah. And Trump's already done more for... Like, Trump has already done more for pro-life causes than fucking W did in 8 years. But they adore W. They adore W. Never mind that W was a fucking cokehead that pissed away his daddy's money his whole life and raised 2 whores. Never mind that about W. No, Trump's the bad guy.
How much funding from evangelical leaders do you think people like George Bush have gotten? Because I wonder how much that has to do with it.
I don't know what's up. There's a lot of rot at the top of evangelical culture, let's call it, because not strictly speaking a denomination, but evangelical culture, conservative Protestant culture here in America. There's a lot of rot and soy at the top. Now, what fills me with some hope is that I've for a very long time now noticed that there's a strong disconnect between the rank and file and even pastors at local churches and who represents evangelicals on the world stage, on the national stage. I've noticed this for a while. I noticed back in 2012, evangelicals down at the grassroots levels adored Ron Paul. And then all the evangelical leadership were all about Rick Santorum. I've noticed this disconnect for a while. Evangelicals as a voting bloc adore Trump. You go to your average evangelical church and talk to your average guy there, and he loves Trump. He's got a Trump bumper sticker on his fucking truck. Trump is A-okay to him.
Though occasionally we do get...
The pastor might say, well, some of the things he said I don't like, but by and large, I think he's a good president. But then when you get up to the leadership levels, the guys running these sort of para-church ministries, they're all like, Trump likes pussy, and that makes my pussy hurt.
Though occasionally we do get people who aren't a Ben Shapiro and all that.
A little bit, but you get a lot of that because you do get a lot of the Israel worship among them. That's a fucking idol in the evangelical church. It's got. If I could change one thing about evangelical culture in the United States, it would be to convince evangelicals that Jews are not their friends. I'm not even saying you have to change anything about your fucking end times things. Okay, you think God wanted to restore Israel. You think Israel's been restored as a nation for a reason. That's fine. But if God wants them there, it doesn't mean we have to be their bitch, all right? If he wants to keep them there, he can handle that. But to really hammer home the point that, Jews aren't your friends, all right? They're not your buddies. And this is the real point. Modern Judaism is not the Judaism you'll find in the Old Testament.
It's a completely different religion
they have
grew in
their
its
own
own way.
They have their own New Testament, and it's fucked up.
Huh.
Yeah, that'd be like, just get that through your head, man. They're not your buddies. All right. They call you goys. All right. You know what that means? It means they think of you as animals. I mean, Oh, you're such an anti-Semite. Yeah, I'm an anti-Semite, and by that I mean I have the crazy idea that maybe, if you're thrown out of 110 countries, maybe you're the asshole. Just a crazy thought. What's that old saying? If you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole. If you meet 50 assholes throughout the day, you're the asshole. Well, if you meet 110 assholes, you're definitely the asshole. No, no, no. Everyone else in the world is the jerk.
I wonder what evangelical culture will look like once the baby boomers are gone.
Oh, well, as with everything about the world, I imagine better. That fucking miserable generation as a whole can't shuffle out of here fast enough. Just fuck them. You need to get the soy out of evangelical culture desperately. You gotta get some fucking balls in evangelical culture needs a lot more doll rock. You gotta get some fucking balls in there. Hell, one of my favorite preachers is a guy named Steve Brown. He's just a grizzled old, halfway cynical old man. I fucking love the guy.
I think you mentioned him at some point. I should check him out.
You should. He's very heavy on emphasizing the actual grace aspect of the gospel. Key Life Ministries is his ministry. He's I mean, hell, his radio show was probably one of the big things that pushed me towards Christ as I was getting converted. And he's probably the only guy he's one of the few times I've had a book signed too. Like I've gone out of the way to have a book signed.
I remember visiting my my boomer dad's old church a couple times because apparently his family didn't like the new one, so they sent him back there.
Mm-hmm.
And the pastor is this old overweight boomer who talks about how Noah's never seen the rain or how your left hand is satanic.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the literal creationism in evangelicalism, I just like. I guess I get why they cling to it, because I guess it just really does make your theology a lot simpler. But I just don't think literal creationism holds water. But that's a pretty minor complaint compared to the fact that I'd like them to have some balls.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily non-creationist. I'm just pretty sure we have human civilizations that are more than 6,000 years old.
Yeah, I don't buy the 6,000. And as I pointed out numerous times, and I don't believe I've never gotten a satisfactory answer to this. If the universe is 6,000 years old, then when I look up in the sky and see a star that's 20,000 light years away, what the fuck am I seeing? Now, I've heard some literal creationists will argue, and very rarely do I see them address this argument at all, but some literal creationists will say, well, God created the light in between the star and you. So I'm like, doesn't that mean that God filled the sky with lies? I mean, aren't I looking at a recording, for lack of a better word, of events that never happened? I mean, if we see through a telescope tomorrow a star that's 15,000 light years away, implodes on itself or goes supernova or whatever, aren't we just seeing events that never happened in the creationist model?
I think the only thing to ask questions about there is probably how we measure that sort of time.
Aaron Clary is in the chat, and he says, what do Catholics say about the age of the earth? Because they're right about everything, I got to give the Catholics credit. They're not autistic about creationism. A lot of them are evolutionists or old earth. I don't know what the official Catholic doctrine on it is, but I know that the literal 6,000-year-old universe creationism is not nearly as common among even very conservative Catholics as it is evangelicals.
Actually, I'm pretty sure the official Catholic doctrine hasn't accepted that the Earth is heliocentric until the 1980s.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about their current fucking doctrine. I mean, they probably thought the Earth was flat 1,000 years ago. But Dan Allison says it's interesting. He says God made Adam as an adult. Doesn't that mean Adam was a lie? No. There's a difference between appearance of age and filling the sky with images of events that didn't happen. You see, Adam was made as an adult, right? But it's not like his head was full of false memories of a childhood. Therein lies the difference. You know, he could speak a language, presumably Hebrew, I don't fucking know. But it's not like he remembered learning that language. It's not like he remembered going to school and being taught how to count and read and write or something. You know, he was just an adult. He didn't have false memories in his head.
I mean, of course, Adam's going to need to be of an adult. Of course, he's going to need an adult body if he's going to fend for himself.
Well, again, there's a difference between a quote-unquote appearance of age and literally filling the sky with events that never happened. You know? Again, if I watch a star 40,000 light years away through a big, powerful telescope go supernova, I'm watching an event that never happened. Did that star ever even exist? You know? That's the difference there. You could tell me, okay, appearance of age. Okay, you know, everything was made in its current state. You know, the stars were made as mature stars. They didn't have to form. Okay, fine. But it still doesn't change the fact that unless you're filling the sky with lies, it was a good 4 years before Adam could see a single star in the sky. You know what just occurred to me, though? This could be a possible explanation. If you take the creationist account literally, then before the fall, there's no death and there's no entropy, right? So everything is essentially immortal.
Uh-huh.
Well, it doesn't really say how long it was in between the creation of the universe and the fall. So
No, it doesn't.
perhaps a creationist could argue that it was billions of years.
That's the thing. That's the thing
That's
we know.
literally something that just occurred to me. So I've never heard any of them argue that. In fact, most of them seem to think it was like fucking 8 minutes or something. Like it's right away. As soon as he said don't eat that apple, motherfuckers made a beeline for it.
One thing I am sure of, though, is that the moment Eve was created, they were probably boning, right? So, and it takes 9 months to create Cain and Abel. Well, again, we don't know how many kids they actually had.
I don't know. Maybe there was no procreation before the fall. I don't know.
No, there had to have been procreation. I'm
Well,
pretty
if
sure
they're
that's what he
immortal, there wouldn't be any need for it. You know, I have to admit, he's a big fedora, but there's a YouTube channel called Dark Matter, like bunch of numbers. I don't know, but he does these.
It is the guy who
videos.
makes his crappy animations.
Yeah, well, he did one on like what if they never ate the apple, right? And like him and Adam and Eve are fucking and having kids, and then they're all fucking and having kids, and the animals are all doing the same, but nobody dies. So like eons go by, and the Earth is literally like twice the size because there's just layers and layers of people laying on top of each other.
I mean, I get the feeling we'd probably have built quite a bit and be able to expand by then or something. Or maybe we just stop. Maybe God would just have us stop boning or something. I don't know.
That's sort of one of the reasons I don't take creationism literally, is because you can look at nature and arguably see design, right? The problem is death is a pretty intricate part of that design. It's very obviously a feature and not a bug. You know, and not only that, but a lot of what we call quote unquote rot, you know, entropy, death, is caused by bacteria and viruses and, you know, other microorganisms. Were they created by the fall? In other words, did death entering into the world create new life? Because that throws a philosophical wrench in how creationists look at things. And
Perhaps there was more suffering involved or something.
And then
Maybe.
What purpose in the Garden of Eden did bacteria and viruses serve? You know what I mean? If there was no death, if there was no rot, if there was no need for a a cycle, the circle of life, to quote Elton John, then what purposes did those microorganisms serve? I mean, you can't argue they were pets because Adam didn't have the ability to even perceive their existence.
And obviously, we need to kill our meat before we eat it.
Well, I mean, I guess you could argue everything was vegetarian before the fall because there was no death. But at the same time, you telling me a shark was swimming around being a vegetarian? That's the other thing. You see, you can point to what looks like design. What you can argue is intelligent design in nature. The problem is death is an intricate part of that design. I mean, if you looked at a shark and told me it was designed, I'd have to say, yeah, it was designed to kill. What purpose does that design serve in a deathless universe?
You think it could be tied to where we go after death?
I don't know.
I'm just spitballing you.
I don't know how I really interpret Genesis. I take it as, we're not what we were created to be originally, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have a good explanation for how it all fits together. I just don't think that literal creationism holds water.
And the whole 6,000 years old thing is enough to get me not trust in Ken Ham that much.
Yeah, I don't buy that for a second.
Or him saying dinosaurs were on the ark.
Yeah, well, I had this interesting talk too because I was talking to a Christian about the RK theory, right? And they were trying to dismiss it because it was evolutionary. And I told him,
oh my gosh!
And I told him, like, you realize even in a creationist model, there's evolution. He's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you take even like Ken Ham's model or something. I mean, like microevolution is a fucking fact. Okay, that's not a theory. That's an easily observable fact. Okay, you can take a petri dish full of bacteria and you can observe it over a couple of days. Plus, there's the fact that we took wolves and after years and years and generations of selective breeding, we turned wolves into poodles and chihuahuas. Okay, there's very obviously evolution within a kind, as Ken Ham would call it. So obviously there's evolution within human beings. I mean, just there's different breeds of human beings. It's just observable reality. So yeah, human beings that, end up in certain, that flourish in certain climates are going to be shaped by that.
That's the thing. There's still practical things tied to evolution that we can observe. Just like everything, but some of it's still there.
Within the strict creationist model, there's still evolution within a kind. In other words, they would argue there was in the Garden of Eden, there was some dog-like beast, and from it we get dogs and wolves and foxes probably, and there was some cat-like beast, and from that we got lions and pumas and cheetahs and house cats and what have you. There was some bison-like beast, and from that we got bison and cows and cattle and ox or whatever. So there's still what Ken Ham calls it a kind. The Bible refers to, two of each kind and that sort of thing. So I guess that's the scientific term for that. I think wouldn't be species, but like family or something like that. Been a while since I've looked at, the chart of, there's animal kingdom, and then beyond that, mammals or reptiles or birds. I forget which one that's called. You know what I mean? But like family, like there's a cat family, and even though tigers and lions and cheetahs and all are different species, they all belong to the same family. They're all cats. Actually, technically speaking, wolves and dogs are the same species. That's just different races, quote unquote, within a species. So, people that claim that, all races are the same. I mean, just look at the dog, There's obviously a tremendous amount of biodiversity you can get even within a single species.
It'd probably reduce the amount of animals you need to put on the ark.
Now, in all, yeah, um, I mean, there's a good amount of like thought the Ken Ham types have really put into it. You got to give them that. So yeah, you wouldn't need two of each species on the ark in theory. You would just need two of each kind. I don't know. Like I said though, there's just a lot of reasons I don't think it holds water.
How much of Ken Ham stuff is actually biblical, though? There's my question. You're telling me there were dinosaurs on the ark that Noah was the first guy to see rain.
There's some things in Genesis that are referred to as like leviathans, or not leviathan, like some like large beasts or something like that could be referring to dinosaurs, I guess. But then there's also a lot of like wild, wacky shit in Genesis that Ken Ham sort of just ignores, like the half demon, half people shit running around. Like
yeah, he ignores
all the demons that got chicks pregnant. He just glosses right the fuck over that.
That sounds like a pretty vital part.
Yeah, supposedly that's where like the giants came from and shit like that. You know, and anyone who takes it seriously could almost argue like half the mythological monsters from, you know, myths could have come from that shit. I don't know what a half demon baby might look like. Maybe that's where fucking, you know, maybe that's where the Hydra came from. I don't know.
Could have been a big reason for there to be a flood in the first place.
Somebody says unicorns are in the Bible. This is true. Unicorns are in the Bible. There's a lot of weird, wacky shit in Genesis. I would say Ken Ham stuff does generally go with a very autistic, literal interpretation of Genesis. I would say it's pretty biblical if you insist on taking everything fucking literally about Genesis. I just, to me, the Ken Ham types and the atheist Fedora types, they're like two sides of the same coin. In that, it's like, Ken Ham can't imagine any aspect of the Bible not being literal. Like, he has to basically believe God is an old man on the clouds. He has to cling to the absolute most fairy tale aspects of it. Because he knows if he doesn't, you know, if you have nothing, if you have no God, then you end up putting bananas up your ass, you know? So it's like both Ken Ham and your Fedoras, they reduce God to being a fairy tale, essentially. And the Ken Ham types cling to the fairy tale because they know, you know, without it, they have nothing but the abyss. And the Fedora types just dismiss it, and arguably rightfully so, as a ridiculous fairy tale. But again, they both, in my opinion, start from the flawed start of, you know, let's be fucking autists about everything. Somebody is saying the unicorn in the Bible is probably a rhino.
Rhino?
Well, isn't a rhino just a really fat unicorn? Isn't a rhino just a feminist unicorn? Well, shit. I'm probably gonna wrap this up because all I really wanted to talk about was the Ken Ham, or not the John Stone Street stuff. What a fag! What a fag! Like, just, you know what, folks? If you oughta. Now they moderate the hell out of those comments, but you oughta tell Ken Ham what you think of his article, or not Ken Ham, fucking John Stone Street. Tell John Stone Street what you think of that article. Just Google. Go on to breakpoint.org. It'll be like right around the front page. Or just Google Breakpoint and Alex Jones or something like that. You'll find it. And you know what the real irony of it all is? If Breakpoint was getting run off the fucking internet, Alex Jones would defend him. Alright. That's about all I got for tonight, folks. Thanks for listening, and thanks for calling in there, caller. Always fun to have you. Shame we couldn't get Tom on here to fight with you.
I feel like that's I'm not sure if there's really much else to argue about there, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's fun having you two spur. All right, well, that's about all we got for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Bechtloff out.